Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Active Thames webinar, where we're hosting Tower Hamlets Canoe Club. I'd like to start with introductions to our speakers today. So over to Greg, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here. I'm Greg van Heerden. I am the Recreational Programs Lead for British Canoeing.
Thank you, Greg. And Alex?
Yes, hi there. I'm Alex. I'm the founder of this visually impaired paddling program and newly qualified coach at Tower Hamlets Canoe Club and a regular kayaker there.
Thank you, Alex. Addy?
Hello, everyone. I'm Adi Latif, and I am a participant at the visually impaired paddling program at the Kayaking Club.
Masuma?
Hi everyone, I'm Masuma Ali, and like Adi, I am also a participant.
And Ingo?
Yeah, good evening. My name is Ingo Wickenhauser. I'm a member of Tower Hamlets Canoe Club and a volunteer in the visually impaired paddling program.
Thank you very much, Ingo. And my name's Jenny Cooper. I'm sports manager at the PLA and helped establish the Active Thames programme. It's a partnership programme where we're working with several partners, including British Canoeing, to capitalise and maximise the use of our waterways for sport on the tidal Thames and other waterways like Shadwell Basin, which is where Tower Hamlets Canoe Club are based. As a little bit of housekeeping, we are recording this session and it will be posted on the activethames.co.uk website afterwards for people to be able to catch up in their own time. You're able to ask questions via the Q&A function, so please do send those through and we will ask questions of everybody who's here tonight. We've got a section designated to that.
And I just wanted to add in there, Jenny, that in the spirit of having a really great meeting this evening, I just wanted to highlight that the space that we are having tonight is a safe space, non-judgmental space too. So really want you to ask those burning questions, really engage with the paddlers themselves and the coaches, so that you really get the most out of the time that we have this evening. So yeah, just keep that in mind as we go forward.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, Alex, could you let us know a little bit more about the project, please?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Alex, and today I'm going to tell you a bit about how I set up the visually impaired paddling program at Tower Hamlets Canoe Club. I am reading this aloud, but I'll be speaking more freely later. I've been a regular kayaker since 2014 and a regular kayaker with the club since 2019, going on various sea, whitewater and tidal Thames trips, as well as recently gaining my first coaching qualification. Also in 2019, I was told about some blind kayakers who had traveled through the whole of the Grand Canyon, paddling over 200 miles along the mighty Colorado River. Watching the videos, I was amazed that they could manage such large and powerful rapids, and was intrigued by the sighted paddlers who were guiding them through using only their voices and vocal sounds. I'm now in contact with Team River Runner, the organisation who took the blind kayakers there. They have been running visually impaired paddling programs across the USA for at least 10 years as part of catering to a wide range of physical disabilities. They offer week-long clinics where they get visually impaired people with no kayaking experience to paddle twice a day in solo boats on flat water. Some end up paddling grade 3 rapids by the end of the week, an impressive achievement. When I saw the Active Thames funding opportunity, I quickly knew that I wanted to start my own visually impaired kayaking and canoeing program. I had no plan to get blind people going down massive rapids, but was greatly inspired by what I now knew to be possible. Having had blind friends for the last few years, I'm well aware of their abilities and desires to do all manner of things, including potentially risky physical activities. They don't just sit at home listening to music and reading Braille. They like to get out and about and do things as much as anyone else. As kayaking and canoeing are very sociable group activities, I felt that offering a bit more assistance to those with differing levels of vision shouldn't be too difficult for other members of my club, most of whom had never met anyone blind before. Assisting each other in various ways is a big part of kayaking and canoeing and regularly practiced. While doing the research for my funding application, I was rather surprised to find that no regular VI paddling programs seem to exist in the UK. Both British Blind Sport and British Canoeing could not tell me of anyone else already doing this, so I realised I was unlikely to get much advice from anyone in the UK. I eventually got in touch with Team River Runner themselves, speaking in February on the phone to their CEO for nearly an hour. He's an enthusiastic guy who likes to get blind people in solo boats very early on. I knew the solo boating would be the program's first big challenge, as tandem boating with VI people is really quite easy. When you're sitting in the stern of a shared canoe or kayak, you can't really tell if the person in front of you can or can't see. That's because you don't need to be able to see to paddle. I can paddle fairly well blindfolded, as can the various assistants on the VI program. Kayaking and canoeing are really about feel, with your vision mostly reserved for navigating. You look up ahead, not at what the blade in the water is doing. If you can't see at all, you can follow a guide boater's voice or other audio cues, plus verbal instructions on where to go. After the project was approved by the PLA, I did all the necessary liaising with other organisations, my club committee, other club members, and potential programme participants. I found all of the participants by placing an advert with our partner organisation, Metro Blind Sport. I really didn't know if many people would answer the ad, but within the first 11 days of it going online, all 8 initial places on the programme had been filled. The first session was in March, and 23 sessions later, we have 12 visually impaired paddlers of differing levels of vision, including totally blind. We have 19 sighted club members who assist them, though not every week. Each does about 1 session a month, with some assisting more and some assisting less often. Our club has around 100 active members. Our weekly sessions take place on Tuesday evenings at Shadwell Basin, a sheltered body of water in East London, not far from Tower Bridge. We usually have 1 sighted assistant to 1 visually impaired paddler, though the ratios do vary. If someone can see, we will make the most of that sight. If someone can't see, we will take the time to describe whatever is necessary and focus on what things feel and sound like. We always start each participant in a shared boat, but find most are soon keen to paddle single boats. All VIPs always have an experienced assistant nearby in another boat to guide, coach, and be there in case of any mishaps, such as capsizes. In fact, it took until the 20th session for any of the VIPs to capsize. You will be hearing from him later. Currently, we are working on integrating our VIPs further into the club, including getting them on more club trips and more sessions with our other sighted members. We are trying to move them from their own dedicated program to regular club activities, while still providing assistance where necessary. We're essentially trying to dissolve the VIP program in favour of integration. The experience so far has been quite enjoyable and positive for everyone involved, so I hope other water sports clubs will consider offering something similar for VI people in the near future. Any interested parties are welcome to come down to one of our Tuesday sessions and even come out on the water with us. To conclude, any level of visual impairment is not a significant barrier to participating in kayaking, canoeing, or other water sports. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Alex. Round of applause there from Addy. Okay, we'll go across to some questions for Masuma and Addy now. So just really basic one to begin with. So let's go to Masuma. Why paddling? Why did you give it a go?
For me, I'd say I'm generally reasonably sporty and kind of like to do stuff. However, since the pandemic, I haven't done any sports, and I was going to go back to tennis, which is what I generally do. But then I caught COVID, and that really I kind of had a bit of a knockback, experienced a lot of muscle weakness. So when I saw the canoeing opportunity, I was like, you know what, maybe this could be my kind of road into getting back into sports, getting my fitness levels up again. So I gave it a go, and I loved it. So I kind of, stuck with it, and it's definitely helped me, build my confidence and just start to feel a bit more comfortable in my own fitness levels and goals.
Awesome. How does it compare with tennis in terms of fitness levels?
Well, I thought kayaking was all about the arms, but I learned very quickly that that's not the case. So they both require all your body to be involved. And you know what? That's one of the things I really like. It's that you do one exercise activity and it gets all of you moving.
Thanks, Masuma. Addy, what made you give it a go?
Kind of similar to Masuma. My fitness levels had been slowly declining over the last few years, and I've been pretty fit, but I didn't want to go back to the gym. I was trying to look for fun ways of working out and exercising, and sometimes it can be a little bit more limited when you can't see, and so I thought this sounded like an interesting activity. It would keep me engaged, and that would then result in me getting a bit of a workout. So that was kind of one of my main reasons for getting into it also.
Great. And could you describe your first session on the water?
Yeah, my first session, well, it was really interesting actually, because I was very keen to get into the water, but there was a little bit of protocol in the beginning, and one of the things we did was have a nice good old feel of the different types of vessels. So not being able to see, I can't just watch TV and see people whitewater rafting. I wouldn't know what that thing looks like they're in. And so in the first session, we just got a feel of this is what a canoe feels like. And in the past, when I was younger, I had been in a canoe and a kayak. But it was nice for me to feel the difference between those two boats, and then to feel what a whitewater boat was like. And so that was really, really great. And then to get familiar with the paddles and how they work. So the off the water was just as important. It just gave me this awareness, and then when people mentioned the names of the different boats, I could have like an image. When we got into the water, I was keen, like Alex was saying, quite a lot of people are keen just to get into single kayak, but I think the idea of going in a tandem was great because it took a little bit of pressure off me. I wasn't that worried. I had someone in the kayak with me. My turning obviously isn't great on day one, so I didn't need to stress, and also it allowed me an opportunity to get a feel for the water and begin to feel the paddle going through the water. I was feeling the paddle a lot with my hands to make sure I'm putting it in right, and I think it was like that towards the beginning, a few sessions, and eventually I stopped doing that, and I could just feel the angle of the paddle as it cut through the water. So as Alex was saying, eventually you don't need to look at the paddle, or in my case, I don't need to touch it with my hands to know I'm putting it in right. So just developing that feel. But yeah, that day one was really important for me. I really enjoyed it.
And what was your first go like, Masuma?
I'd actually echo everything that Ali's kind of described in terms of how the session ran, and it took the same structure. I unlike Addy, wasn't particularly keen to be right out on the water straight away. Let's say tummy and butterflies feeling was my feeling at the beginning of the session, and because I like to do things differently, I just happened to pick the hottest day of July to do my very first session. So I was half an hour late, which was stressing me out anyway. But the guys at the club and Alex were just amazing. Like, I felt quite relaxed quite immediately, and all that land activity actually helped ease some of my nerves before we did have to get into the canoes, and I definitely appreciated being in a tandem canoe, that's for sure.
That's great to hear. So sort of different experience, different level of experience before. Had you ever had a go at any water sports before Tower Hamlets Canoe Club?
I had, but very ad hoc and a long time ago. And I think it was, again, that gap in the fitness and just everything, just the whole COVID thing and just doing stuff again. So I guess there's a combination of anxiety. It wasn't just the water.
And what would you say has been the best thing about paddle sports, about the experience overall? If we go to Addy on that one.
It's quite a few different things. One is the fact, I live in London and don't really get a chance to go in the water. I mean, I live near a canal and I always think it's out of bounds. So the fact that, I can get into a vessel on this watery road, because I can't really cycle by myself. For example, I need to go on a tandem bike, but with the kayaking, you can be in a solo boat and someone can be guiding you. So that independence is wonderful. So I definitely enjoy that. Enjoy the fitness. Like Masuma was saying, it's like a whole body fitness, and it's a sense of adventure. You're trying to get from one place to another, so it keeps you going. But also the social aspect. The longer I've been at the club now, the more I feel like I'm being integrated into the club. So getting to spend time with the other members it's funny at the beginning because, I mean, to be honest, you know, you see someone with a white stick, that's the blind person. And sometimes people get a bit, you know, if they've never met someone blind, there's always a bit of anxiety and people aren't a bit sure. But after you've seen this person with the white stick, you know, day 19, then it's all right. You just realize it's just same as me, but has a white stick and eyes don't work very well. So I think I'm really beginning to enjoy that integration in the club. And for the one of the last sessions I went to, actually joined a group where we were learning rescues, and it wasn't the visually impaired group, it was just a mainstream group. So I found that really sort of I felt part of the group. It was lovely.
That's great to hear. Thanks, Addy. Masuma, what's been the best thing for you?
Oh, I think lots of things. I've kind of enjoyed getting back into sports. I think one of the things that really stands out to me is, whilst I was quite worried about being in a single kayak, once I'd kind of got in and we sort of got out into the open, just that the freedom, it was exhilarating. Like, to be in my own kayak, it felt awesome. It really did. Like, and at the end of the session, like I was saying to Alex, I was like, oh my God, I actually loved that. Like, you know, it felt so good. It was a great feeling. And I think that's one of the things that kind of kept me coming back, because it was that buzz, that adrenaline of being able to do something independently. It's like Addy says, I can't jump on a cycle and, you know, I need someone with me, you know, as a tandem cycle. But with the kayak, you know, as long as there's another person in a single kayak, I can be in my own. And yeah, that's definitely one of my standouts from the session so far. And then last week, well, actually not last week, only this week, we did lots of rescue stuff, which I actually really enjoyed as well.
That's great to hear, Masuma. Thank you. I guess a little bit more of a technical question. So what assistance do you need, if any? So Addy, if you could go on that one, please.
Sure. I usually need someone to guide me, so I'll take their elbow, and if we're kind of maybe walking to the changing rooms, for example, once I'm in the building, I'll kind of map it out pretty well, and then I'm okay moving around once I'm in the building. But at times, maybe just getting to the door, I'll need help like that. Carrying the boat, so you know, I can carry one end of the boat, and my guide will carry the other end. And this is a really cool system. I guess if you're blind, or if you're not blind, you know, two people sometimes carry boats. And so this practice of two people carrying the boat is great, because it's automatically that person that's carrying the other end of my boat is guiding me at the same time. You know, I just go where the boat goes. So that's the kind of guidance outside the water. And then once the boat is on the edge, you know, next to the water, I can put it in, I can jump in the boat, oh, that's fine. And then it's really just trying to listen for people. If someone's in front of me, just following their voice, or we just use different things. Sometimes I can feel the sun, you know, on the face when we get sun. We've been getting quite a lot of it this year. And, you know, my guide might say, just go towards the sun. You know, and we do that, and so if there's ways of, you know, me following a sound or a person or the elements in some way or another, then you know, we've got some ducks and some swans. They've got a nest on the basin, so sometimes I can hear that the you know, them making a noise. So I'll try and go in the opposite direction to that. But yeah, the guiding when we're on water, it's just trying to follow some sounds. There is some tech we've not really used yet, and some of the great kayakers and canoers from America, Alex was mentioning that they use some tech, and I love tech. So hopefully, you know, I'll try and use a little bit of technology as well to help guide me, like a talking compass and things like that. But yeah, it's not really rocket science. There's not really much more to it for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Addy. And then Masuma, we're getting a little bit of a rustle. I think it's your microphone, if you could pull it forwards a little. But could you tell me about sort of any support that you might need?
So Addy said lots of excellent stuff. So I'm not going to kind of go into that. But in terms of top tips for a club wanting to introduce water sports, I think my key message would be that it's not scary. Like, it might sound like you're going to have to do lots of things differently, but actually, you know, the adaptations that you may need to make are very minimal. And, you know, it's like Addy says, once you kind of see someone around, people will just kind of like, oh yeah, they're almost part of the furniture, and you know, you kind of just get treated the same as everybody else. And actually, that's what we want. We just want to be treated the same as everybody else. And you know, I think the more clubs that do it, so like Alex mentioned at the beginning, that there's around eight VIPs kind of that did the sessions, but 8 may sound like a big number, but then if more local clubs are integrating blind and partially sighted people into their clubs, that number will reduce. So, you know, we're not talking big numbers and we're not talking big adaptations. So I'd say to clubs, you know, you'll learn a lot, your members will learn a lot. So, you know, take the jump and go for it.
That sounds great. Sounds like great advice. Addy, are there any tips that you'd give to clubs around thinking about improving their inclusion and working with visually impaired people?
Oh no, Masuma has covered a lot of the points there, points that I wouldn't have even thought of. So just listen to what she said. I think just to recognise that sometimes what happens is, you know, I wasn't always blind, and sometimes what people think, you know, they imagine themselves as being blind, or their legs not working, or their arms not working, or whatever the case might be, and then they imagine themselves in that situation and they think, oh no, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so then those limited kind of projections they project on other people, so they'll look at a blind person and say, oh no, you won't be able to do that, because they're thinking, I wouldn't be able to do that if I was blind. And that happens a lot, you know. So I think my tips would be just keep an open mind and take a person at you know, the level of a fellow human being, as opposed to hear someone that's totally different from me. And just ask people, you know, what their needs might be, and be open to, you know, having your expectations blown out of the water. You know, have faith, see someone as capable. A lot of the times, you know, Masuma and myself, we're pretty active, but you'll see blind people who aren't, and they won't think they can be active, and it's because they've been brought up in an environment where people have made them feel that they need to be protected, they need to be mollycoddled, and they can't, and they need to be kept safe, and so they end up not having the confidence or the belief to be able to do anything. I know some blind people who can't make a sandwich for themselves. You know, they feel they might cut their fingers, whereas my brother, he's blind, and you might have seen him on MasterChef last year. So, you know, anything is possible, but a lot of the times, you know, people, you know, they end up becoming kind of learned helplessness. They end up becoming, you know, this person that feels like they can't do anything. So my advice is just have belief in other people. You know, they might be different from you and they might have a disability, but just, you know, believe that they'll be able to do something, and then ask them how, you know, how you can, you know, what kind of environment you can create for them so that they can flourish. I think that's really important. And don't be shy for asking questions, because I think sometimes people walk on eggshells and they won't ask you a question. Like I used to go to job interviews, and the employer would not ask me a question. You know, they might not say, how does a blind person check emails? You know, they won't ask me things like that, but then they won't give me the job because they didn't know how I would work. So you know, so I'd rather people just ask, like, how does a blind person do that? And so then we can, you know, share how we would do that. I don't know if that was helpful.
If I may just comment, I always say to people, there's no such thing as a silly question. Like, if you don't ask, you're not going to learn. And if I think your question's silly or offensive, I'll quite happily tell you that I'm not going to answer it. So ask it. And, you know, if I don't want to answer it, I'll quite happily say that actually that's not appropriate. So, you know, no harm in asking.
That's great. Thank you both. So we're going to move over to some questions of the coaches with Greg now. But I'd just like to remind people online. So talking to questions, please send them through. As long as it's about this project, there's no such thing as a stupid question. So please do send us them, and we will ask our speakers. Over to Greg.
All right, great. Right, I just want to do the first question I want to ask sort of stems on a little bit from Masuma, what she alluded to in terms of it not be necessary to make huge adaptations to be more inclusive. So my first question really is what were the key adaptations you made as coaches to make these sessions more inclusive? Ingo, should we get you a chance?
Let's go with Ingo.
Yeah, happy to take that. I mean, there were basically two major points. One is, Alex mentioned that already in his introduction, is that we start off with tandem kayaks typically, or canoes, where we have two people in the boat, one person with vision and one VIP, just to get them familiar with how boats move, how it feels to being on the water, and so forth. In a regular session, we would usually go straight into being in a single boat or in a single vessel. And the other adjustment is really the ratio between coaches or assistants and the participants. Again, when we do our induction courses, that typically has one coach, one assistant, and then 10, maybe even 15 participants at a time. Whereas when we start with VIPs, we have almost a one-to-one ratio between the assistants and the participants. And that is purely because, as Adi alluded to earlier, when we introduce the boat, for instance, we cannot just say, well, this is, point at a kayak or at the canoe and say, well, this is what it is, which is easy to do in a big group. But if we need to guide them initially to have them feel the boat or paddle and so forth, we need to describe a little bit more. And that's what we do. And that's why we have this higher ratio. And that finally leads on to maybe going initially at a slightly slower pace, because it takes obviously a bit more time to explain things, a bit more detail that otherwise people would just be able to see and grasp quite quickly.
Fantastic.
I think these are pretty much the major adjustments.
Yeah. Alex, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Oh, there's loads of little sort of minor adjustments. I mean, obviously the main thing with anyone blind is all sorts of communication and thinking hard about the obvious basic things of not saying it's over there. So if you want to say it's over there, you need to say over there 5 meters to your left. That's one of the very basic things that my other colleagues, who aren't used to interacting with blind or visually impaired people have to understand initially. But then in terms of actual kayaking, there's all sorts of other things. So I'll give you an example. So a few weeks ago, when I was taking Masuma through what a sea kayak is, so we start on land, and a sea kayak has got quite a lot going on the outside of it. It's got these deck lines, it's got all these hatches, it's just got a lot happening on the outside of it. So I'm happy to take her through all of that and getting her to feel all the different parts and explaining them, all that kind of thing. The next week, I'm with a guy who's blind in one eye, but in his other eye, he's vision. So basically he can see everything. So I then have to react to the fact that I'm dealing with someone now who's got a different level of visual impairment. So I tend to find that blind is kind of simple because you assume that you're going to have to describe everything, but you need to kind of check each person you're dealing with, what is their level of visual impairment? Sometimes they might be able to see stuff up close that you're talking about in front of you, and their vision problem is that they can't see things in the distance or they can't see detail. That's the big thing about different visual impairments. They're very, very individual and unique. So you kind of have to help people because it's actually very hard to understand. And some of these visual impairments, they change with the light. This is something that I wasn't that aware of before I started the program. So we have some participants who have reasonably visual vision in the light, and then it goes dark, and then they pretty much go blind. So it's quite a strange situation where we could be doing a session in, I don't know, October or March, where the first half of the session is in decent light, the second half is in the dark, and you then have to take that into account with that individual. So that's the first thing with the adaptations, looking at what the level of vision is and understanding it for each individual person.
Okay, well, that's very valuable. I think the key learnings, and you guys, both of you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the key elements is it's an ability to describe when we talk about communication rather than just communication, because people think they're good at communication, which means they're just talking a lot. But it's that ability to describe, and then adding to that a space to be physically engage with equipment, which would be different to showing a person, oh, there's the boat over there. This is giving that space to actually touch and feel, and linking that to describing. So, and yes, so you would have to agree that those are critical elements, but don't require any huge changes or adaptations within the club environment to provide that. Okay, brilliant. That's really valuable. Then another thing, sometimes people forget to ask this, I think, when talking to coaches, is that what have you personally, as a coach, enjoyed the most from being in this space, from coaching in this space?
Ingo?
Okay. I think what I enjoy most is, and I mean, you have Masuma and Adi here. They're very enthusiastic individuals, and it's just fun to teach them. Just showing them how to get engaged in a new activity that they haven't done before, and just generally integrating them in the club, just as any other member, on but also off the water. Because even after we are done with our paddling session, we do other activities. We go to the pub. We have a monthly barbecue where everybody is invited, and they're joining us in these activities as well.
Fantastic. Alex?
Yeah, I mean, just to add a little bit to that, I personally meet anyone who needs to be guided on the streets at Shadwell Station every week, and Ingo does it as well, actually. So we quite often we actually sort of start our session by meeting people, and then we walk up and, you know, we're socializing there and chatting away. Masuma and Adi know what I'm talking about. And then, yeah, stuff continues afterwards. Sometimes we have to guide people back to the stations at the end of the night. So it's all quite sociable. I don't know, I suppose maybe the biggest thing for me is, I don't know, there's an awful lot. Maybe it's being inspired by things that I saw a few years ago, which I talked about in my introduction, and then thinking, I bet we can do that as a club. I don't see why we can't do that. I know enough about visually impaired world to sort of bring that to other people at the club. And then so far, you know, we've been quite successful. I think mostly people enjoy the sessions. That's the main success. But there's a huge amount more we can do. There's, you know, successes that we can have with people, you know, being totally blind, paddling solo. I mean, we've had one of our visually impaired members. He's got a reasonable bit of usable vision. He's done 2 Thames trips in groups. So he's been more integrated into other groups. So it's really good to see him as well being accepted into other groups. And just the idea really is to try and make any level of visual impairment not that big a deal. So it's quite fun to bring what you do normally and give it to other people who maybe wouldn't think of doing it, or there wouldn't be any opportunity for them to do it. It's quite satisfying, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I know from coaching myself, it's that being in that space to pass on your passion, you know, to other people, to show other people that, wow, this is what paddling is about. And yes, no more need to play tennis, just paddle. or do anything else. You know, paddling is amazing, and it's that opportunity which is really special. And then
there's actually another point that I personally find very valuable, also as somebody then who passes on this knowledge, is to learn how to adapt to different situations or different ways of giving instructions. And also different ways of communicating. For instance, I remember an example not too long ago where Adi was telling me when I wanted to go left or right, but to what degree, he just told me, just use the clock dial. Just tell me go 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock and so forth. And that was something I never had thought about before. And it's a great learning experience as well.
So it's absolutely. So it's that two-way engagement, that as a coach, you've got as much to learn from your participants or those that you're coaching than you have to pass on. And yeah, so it's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Ingo. And then my last question really is about the outward thing. How do we encourage other clubs? What would you say to other clubs to take on projects like this or programs like this and to drive inclusivity within their clubs? Let's start with you this time, Alex.
Is it me?
Yeah, I'll start with you.
Oh, okay. What would I say? I mean, the first obvious thing, Suma probably said it before, is, you know, just do it. It's not that big a deal. As I said, you know, when I brought this to the club, I was confident myself in, you know, visually impaired world, that's all fine for me. But I had no idea how other members would react to that. They've had some, minimal level of training, visual awareness training, but there haven't really been any incidents, and there hasn't been any feedback about anyone behaving, I don't know, badly in any way. So basically, have confidence in your workforce, even if they have never met anyone blind or visually impaired. It's not that hard to learn, and then you just get better and better and better as you get more used to it. And it's quite interesting. There's a lot of interesting sort of psychology and philosophy as well. You will learn other stuff about how you can communicate, describe something better. It's quite satisfying to describe something to someone who can't see something and actually get them to do what you want to do, and it will work out for everyone. I think that's quite a satisfying thing.
Great, thanks, Alex.
So just go for it.
Yeah, Ingo, what would you like to say?
Alex just said it. It's the key message. Just go for it. Just give it just try it. See how it works, and how you in your club can deliver something similar. I mean, we are quite fortunate, to be honest, at Tower Hamlets, that we have the Shadwell Basin, which is very sheltered body of water. So at least initially, we can provide the induction quite safely and very easily. But each club needs to see in what environment they operate and how they can do that. But I'm sure there are ways to do it. If there's a will, and you will find a way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, coaches. That is very valuable input. I hope there's some questions coming through to the coaches as well. Just if you do have anything that you want to know, especially around adaptations or specific adaptations or anything aligned to that, please ask those questions while we have everybody online. So thank you, Ingo. Thank you, Alex. That was really valuable.
Masuma and Addy, would you say they've been good coaches?
Proof is in the pudding. I'm on week 5 and I intend to come back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I struggle with commitment, and I didn't think I'd be relentlessly coming back. But the sessions have been so engaging and such fun, and I'm actually learning some skills. So yeah.
Awesome. I think actually perhaps it's important for us to touch on skills for a minute there. To Masuma and Addy and Alex and Ingo. There's a session that I came along to. You were doing covering 4, 5, 6 different skills in one go. It wasn't just simply getting on the water and paddling. So what skills would you say you've checked off the list?
Masuma, you want to go first, or should I?
No, happy for you. Go for it.
I was hoping you'd go first, and then
Oh,
I can
apologies.
say, yeah, check. I've been doing it. So I've learned my basic paddling, and like I said, one thing I had a moment, like a few penny drop moments. One of the moments was I didn't need to use my eyes to, know that I was putting the paddle in properly. At the beginning, I kept thinking I'm at a disadvantage. I'm thinking, no, I'm sure sighted people have a little glimpse. I'm sure they'd like peek and check little bit. But eventually I just got to this point where one of the coaches, he just said it in such a matter of fact. He's like, I never look at the paddle, when I'm, and eventually I got it, and now I can feel when my paddle is going in right. I've learned how to turn on the spot. I've learned how to slow down quickly. All these things are really important. Like I do a lot of snowboarding, so that was one of the kind of areas that sports I did a lot, and I learned the importance of being able to turn quickly, stop quickly to get the technique right, because sometimes not everything can be described to you. So if you're really skilled, then it's going to help. And so I really try to focus on learning the technique with the kayaking. So in moments where it really needs to kick in, then my technique is flawless. I won't say it's flawless right now. I did have a lovely capsize where I was practicing the edge, edging the boat to feel how far you can go. And I think, just working on the feel is really important.
And as I was there, Addy, you didn't just capsize, but you did a beautiful recovery as well. So
yes, and I think it's playing with the boundaries, but working on your sense of feel, which is important for Masuma and myself. And then yeah, sometimes you might go, but next time you'll know what that feels like. That point where you're about to tip over and you just stop just before it, or you recover.
Masuma, is there anything you'd like to add?
Everything he said. I mean, the only thing I'd say, like for me, doing the rescue stuff was like really, it was challenging, but again, it was something that I wasn't sure whether I would manage. Like I managed to, once I fell in, to get myself back into the boat and stuff, but I wasn't sure whether I could rescue the person that had capsized. And I think for me, like being able to do that, I only did that yesterday. That was a real sense of achievement. Like I was quite proud of myself, if I must say so myself, because I was like, oh, I think Andy, you're going to be stuck there now. But no, we did it, and it was great.
Thanks, Masuma. So going across to some of the questions that we've got coming in. One for you, Alex. So how did you go about promoting the session?
Promoting the session, it was just an ad that I placed in Metro Blind Sport, looking for people, and yeah, it didn't take long to get a lot of interest, and I didn't have to try and drum up interest or try and get more people to promote it online. It was on Metro Blind Sport, and then I put an ad in the RNIB Connects Facebook group, so that's Royal National Institute for the Blind Facebook group, and I think I got one of our participants, probably one of the most successful participants. He saw the advert in there, and a couple other people. So it was just a little bit of work online, and really once the ad was out there, it kind of took care of itself, and I didn't have to go chasing people. They came to me, and we've currently got a waiting list of about 8 people. There've been more inquiries, more interest, and some people just have dropped off. They've inquired and they haven't bothered following up. But yeah, there's a waiting list, so basically we can't really take everyone currently, or even this year, which is why it would be good for other clubs to offer something similar.
Yeah, well, hopefully this webinar will help inspire other clubs to do that, because rather than just signposting to Tower Hamlets, we want to see other clubs provide the offer. Yes,
sorry, can I just I just want to say, I think one thing for anyone that's worrying about advertising and promoting the sessions, the word of mouth is very powerful amongst blind and partially sighted people. Like I know myself, once I saw it, I sent it on to others. So, it will advertise itself.
Yeah, no problem with that.
Fab, thank you. Question for Ingo and Alex. So what have you been doing to integrate the visually impaired paddlers with the rest of the club?
Ingo?
Nothing specific really, other than just treating them as any other beginner that comes to the club and starts paddling with us. They just join in the regular activities that we do.
And I guess it's worth pointing out that the session goes on at the same time as your big biggest club night. You've got sort of 40 or so people on the water regularly on a Tuesday night, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's exactly the same time. They meet everybody meets them. So it's not like we have a separate session as such. It's just a separate group within the regular club night that we have on a Tuesday evening.
Lovely. And another question which takes us nicely onto sort of British canoeing and where people can find out a little bit more. So Ruben's asked if other coaches have similar plans to develop their inclusivity. Where should they send their queries to?
Well, yeah, Jenny, those queries can come directly to me. And then we'll handle those on a case-by-case basis, and we'll then link in with any other clubs that potentially work in the same space, or with other organizations outside of us that could provide us with insight and assistance around that. So at the moment, I'm that primary person to make contact with. In the near future, we will have a paddleability person on board. We're busy in the recruitment process around that now. So going forward, we hope to really be able to boost all of these similar type of programs and provide a greater level of assistance than we have in the past.
Fantastic. We've had another couple of questions that I think might require sort of a longer response or a one-to-one. So I look forward to picking up on those. And I think we'll draw things to a close this evening. So thank you all ever so much for joining us. If you have any more questions at all, or if anybody on tonight's call can be helpful to you, please contact us via active.thames@pla.co.uk, and we'll get back to you through there. Thank you all for joining. Thank you very much, speakers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.